Welcome to another installment of the Big, Small, and Weird. The Big, Small, and Weird is sponsored by Vex Capital and Exempt Reporting Advisor. But of course, we have two other companies that are regulated, Vex Securities and Vex Registry. So take a moment to look at the disclaimer that'll come up on the screen. It's very important. Give you a moment to pause it if you'd like. And we will also include a copy of it in the description. So my name is John Crossman.
And I'm Ryan Singer.
And our big, small, and weird companies today, our big one is 20 Technologies. Our small one is Radical Numerics. And our weird or unusual one is AttoTude. So let's start with 20 Technologies. This is a $1 billion valuation company, 138 million raised. And it's a startup founded to industrialize cyber warfare. And it's got, it's just done a Series B issue. The reason it's interesting now is basically the CEO, Joe Lin, has testified before Congress twice this year. They're talking about unleashing the private sector, the Trump administration is, in offensive cyber and operations. And 20 is positioning themselves to be the most visible company. So let's talk about first there's sort of the opacity around this. It's been noted that the only confirmable contract they have is about $12.8 million. They say there's a lot more behind that, but it's behind a securities rule.
Well, the problem is that the firm has clearance, and the contracts are all classified. So the government makes it illegal to talk about how much business they're doing, which makes it really hard for them to talk to venture capitalists or angel investors that don't have clearance about how much money do they make, how much money could they make. I mean, even like the details of their business model itself.
Okay, well, speaking of things that are illegal to disclose and things like that, let's go for the elephant in the room. If their business model is as a corporation to engage in active cyber attack, there's a bit of a problem with that legally, isn't there?
Well, my generation was the first generation of teenage hackers that grew up after they passed the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. And the basics of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act is if you, an American citizen, access any systems that belong to somebody else, no matter where in the world that they are, without their permission, with the goal of bypassing their safeguards or taking their data or anything that they wouldn't want, right? Basically, if you do it in any way but accidentally,
right,
then you've committed a federal felony. And this is the basis of how offensive cybersecurity is regulated outside of the military and intelligence community. But the military and intelligence community don't have an exemption for contractors from the CFAA. If the Army pays you to hack somebody else as an employee, that's a military operation. The Army has to disclose it to Congress. As long as Congress doesn't object, that's reasonable.
Right.
But if the Army pays your company to go hack a foreign adversary, your company's still committing a felony violation, I think, of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act.
So there's no exemption for we're mad at Iran, so it's okay to do it to Iran. I mean, it would be just as illegal to do it to Iran as it would be to do it to Intel.
It's the same. It's the same thing.
It's the same.
It's hacking. It's computer fraud and abuse. And if you're an American citizen and you're doing it, and you're not doing it as an employee of the Army or the CIA acting under their orders, then it is illegal.
Okay, and so the fact that InQtel, the CIA venture capital arm, got into this company at very early stages, you don't think that gives them the coverage, or you think they're still in trouble with that one?
Well, I think that what's interesting about this is it just feels so very cool, right? Like here we have the most badass hackers that venture capitalists can hire, and then they're going to go after America's enemies, and they're going to make the world safe for democracy, right?
Right.
You can almost like hear the patriotic music and see the fireworks, but the thing that makes it safe for them is simply that the Justice Department's not going to fuck with classified operations.
Right.
Right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that the next Justice Department won't come here. Right? When you're in the military, if you're acting on legitimate orders from the President of the United States,
you're covered.
The next president coming in probably isn't going to be able to do much to you.
Right.
But if you're a private company and you engage in these practices, I mean, it's like the thing it reminds me of is this guy who got arrested recently for stealing all the gold from the CIA. Right? Because it blew open something that everybody already kind of suspected, which is the CIA had a program to give cash and gold and Rolexes to foreigners that were willing to provide information to the CIA about foreign governments and foreign corporations, right?
Correct, yeah.
If they do that, that's called intelligence.
Right.
If I do that, then it's called bribery, and it's illegal under the Lockheed Act.
Right, and they'll come after you for that one for sure.
Right, and even if I did it because the CIA encouraged me to,
right,
it's still illegal, and a future administration that doesn't agree with what this administration did could absolutely come after me. This feels like the same thing, where they can go out and they can, Team America, fuck yeah, against everyone.
That's right.
And then later on, the Dems come into office, and there's a reckoning.
Yeah. So just to tie this off and sort of finish it off, in 2018, a massive amount of Google employees killed Project Maven. And then now in 2025, Google's kind of walked away from that. They've removed their pledge against military AI. We've seen defense tech raise a lot of money in the last year or so. Do you think that Silicon Valley has developed a moral framework to allow them to do this defense work? Or do you think it was just the money got big enough and AI is just a natural fit for a lot of this?
Yeah, I think that it used to be that Silicon Valley was extremely concerned about being used for intelligence work, especially domestic intelligence work.
Right.
Silicon Valley really didn't want to help governments oppress people.
Yeah.
And this was a huge concern. And I think what flipped it was the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022.
Interesting. So they started out worried that the government might go after Antifa protesters in Seattle.
Yeah.
But now with Russia coming in and whacking Ukraine.
Yeah, so that's
all
right.
Bets are off.
I think Silicon Valley used to be worried that governments would hire Silicon Valley to go after their own citizens.
Right.
And we built a lot of kind of ethical and procedural safeguards to make it really unlikely that investor money would be used for that in Silicon Valley.
Right.
And then when Russia came in and started oppressing their neighbors instead of their own citizens, all of a sudden fighting back became moral. Right? And so we saw this massive new wave of defense tech companies that were a lot less controversial. I don't think anyone thinks it's bad to invest in Anduril.
No, that's a...
Right? And
another venture capital guy, that's doing hardware, but yeah.
But if you look at that now, if defense tech is becoming okay in Silicon Valley, but when I say defense tech, we actually mean offensive capabilities tech. Right? Then we have to talk about cyber. You can't talk about drones without talking about using the internet to knock the drones out of the sky. Right? So if you're going to talk about drones and you're going to talk about offensive hardware capabilities, we're going to have to start talking about offensive software capabilities too. And that is entirely what we're talking about here. And I think it's just part of Silicon Valley growing up. It's a normal part of technology, and we have to develop those capabilities. But what we're going to need is we're going to need the law to catch up.
So you're really saying we've gotten ahead of where the law was targeted at, and the situation has just changed. But these guys are definitely playing it close to the line.
I think these guys are over the line for where the law is,
right?
But I think they're not over the line for where the ethical sensibilities have moved to,
and the politics,
and where the politics have moved to.
Right.
I think the law needs to catch up. I think the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act needs to have an exception for military and intelligence contractors that are acting under orders.
Okay, so this one may be an okay one if they can just clean up the legal.
Well, if Congress can pass a fix.
Okay, good luck to that. Okay, so let's go to the small one. This is a very sort of controversial and sexy space, radical numerics. Where this started out, 4 Stanford AI researchers built an open source genomic model that can design pathogens. And they released it to the world as a open source project. And now we have a company led by Emergence Capital that was a 50 million seed round. And this company's called Radical Numerics. And they're basically coming out and saying the model that they released, open source when they were at Stanford, we're not going to commercialize defense against this. Does that sound like about what we've got here?
Well, it reminds me of like 90s antivirus, right? Where you had all these viruses coming out every day
on schedule,
and that was and you kind of got the vibe that McAfee and Norton and all these guys didn't mind that and might have been involved in kind of computer virus research and zero-day discovery and
never proven,
right?
But much discussed,
but highly speculated. And then once they created the disease, they sold the vaccine.
Right.
And you have to subscribe because they're sending the updates every day to protect you from every day's new disclosures, right? And that worked until it didn't. But these guys seem to be doing the exact same thing with physical viruses that can kill human beings.
Right.
Where they launched an open source model showing how easy it was to use AI to develop pathogens. And then they raised money for this company that developed proprietary defensive models to be able to inoculate the human race against all of these things and to do biodefense. And in order to get people to be willing to pay for that, in order to get people to really think that this is necessary, both from an investment perspective and from, I think, a public sector acquisitions perspective,
right,
is they demonstrated that all of the safety guardrails that they built into the open source model are actually completely bullshit, and it might actually be impossible to build safety guardrails that aren't bullshit.
Well, you know what this sounds like? It sounds like the updated AI turbocharged version of gain-of-function research.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it sounds like the same arguments being made of we need to have this research so that we can defend against this research, and we need to amp it up so we know what we're doing. Hopefully, it doesn't end up in the same. We don't all end up spending 2 years locked down again.
Yeah, I hope so. I think the big challenge in this is actually a business model perspective. Right, because public health is a tragedy of the commons problem.
Right, who's going to pay for it?
And so the only ones that can pay for it is the government.
Right.
So it seems like the VCs here are making this bet that if they scaremonger enough, they can get the public contracts.
Right, the NIH will have to pay for this.
Yeah, which is really terrifying because the way to scaremonger is to give everybody in the world the capacity to create pathogens, with the hope that someday somebody will pay these guys to put the genie back in the box.
Put the fix in. Yeah. Ugh. Fun and kind of scary.
Kind of scary.
Okay, let's move on to the weird one, and it's only weird because we're getting into tech that probably at the limit of our understanding, but I think we can probably do justice to this one. So the company is called AttoTude. And AttoTude is a very interesting one because it's really founded by the co-founder of Infinera, which was bought up later by Nokia. And he's really seen as one of the lead guys on fiber optics, that he's one of the lead fiber optic sort of driving it into the future sort of guy running the company. And now with this new firm, he's really saying, well, fiber optics are all fine for a lot of things, but for what we need to use them for, we need to actually go to something called terahertz radio, which is sort of the space between visible light and microwave, as I understand it. So he's closed this thing. At the same time, NVIDIA has announced at their GTC 2026 that they're really going to go all in on the fiber optics that this guy developed in the past generation.
So what this guy did in photonics that was really exciting is he built the kind of photonic processors and the photonic switches
Right.
for the integrated circuits. And so the whole idea here is what slowed fiber down is you would do fiber for long haul, but in between all of the interconnects, they had to go to copper.
Yeah, you had to down
Right.
into copper, boost it up, and then
shoot it back into the flashlights into fiber.
Right.
And so what Infinera did that sped up the entire internet by so much is they allowed you to do the photonic integrated circuits, so you didn't have to drop back down to copper
Right.
to route the packets.
Okay, I see. So you could basically make the transistors with photonic operations.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And so
I'm sure they don't use transistors now, but just for
So
the old folks.
So NVIDIA spent a shitload of money and bought this company, and they're investing very heavily.
Right.
Nokia bought this company, and then NVIDIA is investing very heavily in the same kind of thing, in photonics and optical as interconnects.
Right.
Meaning that from Nokia's perspective and from NVIDIA's perspective, the data center is actually all about photonics.
Right.
For all packet routing, for bringing all data back and forth between computers.
So they can put their thousands of GPUs
That's
all
right.
wired up with photonics rather than
So it only actually comes across into electricity over copper at the very, very edge where it hits the processor that's going to do all the work,
right
and never from a networking or routing perspective.
for shooting it around. Okay.
Yeah, so we're only electricity again when we're at the GPU or at the TPU, and we're doing training and inference and compute.
Okay. So David Welsh is the guy proving that photonics was the future, and now he's saying no, we need to use this new technology, this terahertz radio with waveguides and all sorts of fancy new tech that's going to be better than both photonics and copper.
Well, what he's saying is that the photonics is overkill.
Right.
That you can transcend the limitations of copper within kind of the 40-meter, your one floor on the data center perspective.
Right.
Using what feels like this terahertz next generation Wi-Fi radio stuff.
Right.
And it's a completely different model from what the industry's spending billions and billions and billions on upgrading from the network switches in copper to the network switches in photonics. And he's saying, don't do that. Upgrade instead to these terahertz radio switches instead.
Right.
And so he raised a lot of money. He raised $142 million. He's got a valuation of $446 million. There's a lot of interest in what he has to say because of his big exit on the photonics and because of his big influence in the photonics movement. So him pivoting against it is very interesting. But no revenue yet. Proof of concept is supposed to be coming this year. The whole thing could just be bullshit. And one thing that leads us to think that might be true is his co-founder seems kind of sketch.
He has a bit of a history, doesn't he, with Georgia Tech back about a little over 10 years ago.
So this guy, Joy Lasker, was fired from Georgia Tech and indicted on racketeering charges for allegedly misappropriating or stealing $1 million in university resources for his private company. They never ended up getting the charges together in time from a statute of limitations perspective.
Yeah. And
he has countersued for malicious prosecution. But
it's a bit of a stain.
It's definitely something that comes up in investor due diligence.
Yeah. And it's not and he did lose a tenured position at Georgia Tech. So that's not just getting fired from a job because you pissed off the boss. That's a pretty serious affair.
Getting charged with racketeering is
a very serious affair.
Right? So I think the real question here is, does this tech work? Or are we getting kind of sold a fairy tale here? I want to believe it does because this guy was so involved in making photonics work, and then that did work.
Yeah.
And so that he's persuaded is somewhat persuasive.
Right.
But what I'm concerned about is the investors that led the Series C that are putting in all of this money.
Right.
They're not the data center companies. They're not the ISPs. They're not the chip companies. They're not the people who are really the sophisticated players on optics and copper.
Right, they're not really semiconductor.
They're a clean tech fund.
Yeah, it's clean tech.
That just wishes this is true.
Yeah, and the only place that this terahertz radio has come up in any other discussion is potentially as a 6G core technology, and that's still pretty far off.
And even if it happens, it's not this firm's thesis. This firm's looking
no, this
for...
not. I'm just saying that the only other place I've heard of this is in the 6G space. So it's a pretty bold move, and it does seem like Wesley, who's come into this, may not be the, maybe it got passed over by other people and these guys picked it up.
Yeah, so I think that for me, it sounds weird, kind of cool if true.
Yep.
I'm really excited for the demo they say they want to do this fall.
Yeah, we definitely have to watch out for that, because if it does work, that could this is an industry that gets upended by these technologies every once in a while. It's not unusual.
And if you end up being the guys that do your data center networking, you can become the next Cisco. Could potentially be an IPO to watch for.
Yep, and data centers are being built as we speak. Okay, well those are our three companies that we wanted to cover today. As always, if we've made a mistake or seriously misstated something, please contact us. The point of this is really to discuss what's out there in the venture capital world, what's going on with the private companies, and try and peel back some of the opacity and try and shed some light on what these companies are doing. So if we have missed anything or gotten anything wrong, please let us know and we'll make a correction as soon as possible. Thank you very much. See you next time.